Hello there, dear friends from around the world. Thank you for joining us for our virtual event. It's great to have you with us today. Our event today is called True Tax and Legal Reform, Saving Taiwan with Conscience, Forum Series, A Question of Justice, the Tai Ji Men tax case in Taiwan. It is actually the 76th Judicial Day in Taiwan this year, and the day is celebrated every year around January 11th. And this year there will be a seminar focusing on different resolution mechanisms for new issues that have risen in Taiwan. And for us, we have chosen to look at the Tai Ji Men case to reflect the work and attention needed in order to enhance the justice and the relationship in the judiciary system and the other branches of Taiwan. Just to give you an overlook about Tai Ji Men, Tai Ji Men is a Qigong Academy that was established in 1966. And over the past half century, the Academy has always been a nonprofit organization. Tai Ji Men has contributed a lot to the world and has traveled to over 100 nations. And it has actually been praised widely by incumbent and former presidents of Taiwan, as well as other high-ranking government officials. For example, the former presidents, one of them, Lee Teng-hui, said, "For the past 35 years, since Tai Ji Men was founded, your esteemed organization has upheld objectives of loyalty, filial piety, love for the country, and love of society, uniting like-minded people to promote martial arts, traditional culture, and good social values. It's admirable." So this is from the former president Lee Teng-hui. And also former president Chen Shui-bian said that Tai Ji Men is an ancient manpai of Qigong and martial arts. And the martial arts is passed down from generation to generation. It's like a big warm family. All dizi are energetic and healthy, physical and mentally. And under Zhang Menren's leadership, dizi not only practice self-cultivation, but also spread kindness to help the world. Through international cultural exchanges, they foster love for the world, promoting the idea of love and peace worldwide. And he said, "On behalf of the government, I would like to take this opportunity to extend my utmost respect and gratitude to you once again. Thank you for your long-term efforts and contributions to our country and society." And so today's event, we will also hear from dizi and all the great work that they are involved with. And also, former President Ma Ying-jeou said, "Every time we see Tai Ji Men, we see energy, warmth, and love. We all admire Dr. Hong's compassion and would like to see Tai Ji Men practice this around the world. Let Taiwan stand out and let the world come in." This is from former President Ma Ying-jeou. And also the current president, Tsai Ing-wen, has also said, under the Zhang Menren's leadership, Tai Ji Men has actively participated in international events, conducted citizen diplomacy, and raised Taiwan's global visibility. In the future, I hope that Tai Ji Men under Dr. Hong's leadership will continue to work with the government. Let us use our positive influence and move Taiwan forward with continued progress. Let the world see Taiwan. So these are from our highest leaders of Taiwan, and they have praised Tai Ji Men over the years for all the contributions and love and peace and the mental and physical well-being of the people. Yet the government is not, on the other hand, is persecuting Tai Ji Men through taxation. The Taiwanese government compiled for 2020 a $28.4 billion budget for the Ministry of Culture and $26.7 billion for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, totaling more than $55.2 billion. Throughout the years, Tai Ji Men has done tremendous cultural work and without accepting any funds or donations from the outside. And so it's hard to see that they have been persecuted for 24 years through the unjust case that we are going to look in detail at today. And on the subject of the persecution, in 1996, the government launched a political purge in the name of religious crackdown, and Tai Ji Men was caught in the crossfire. Unable to obtain solid evidence, the prosecutor then summoned a tax officer named Yue Shenshi from the National Taxation Bureau 6 days before he brought public prosecution. The tax officer colluded with the prosecutor and committed perjury. The tax officer, who had never been to the Tai Ji Men Qigong Academy or conducted any real investigation, falsely claimed that Tai Ji Men was a cram school and was suspected of evading taxes. Regarding the tax officer's accusations, the prosecutor never gave the master or shifu of Tai Ji Men any chance to explain or cross-check the statement. The prosecutor simply used the tax officer's untrue statement as evidence to charge Tai Ji Men with tax evasion and forwarded the case to the NTB, which treated Tai Ji Men as a cram school and imposed taxes and penalties for the years 1991 to 1996. And we know around the world we are judging through science. This is not through science and evidence. And later in 2007, the Criminal Division of the Supreme Court found that Tai Ji Men not guilty of fraud, tax evasion, or violation of tax codes, and confirmed that since the red envelopes offered by the dizi to the shifu were gifts, they were tax-free income under Article 4, subparagraph 17 of the Income Tax Act, and that items such as uniforms for practicing Qigong, which were collectively procured by certain Tai Ji Men dizi out of the needs of dizi, were not sold for profit, and hence no tax issue. In 2009, all the innocent defendants who were detained were awarded national compensation for unlawful detention. This further confirms that Tai Ji Men was wrongly accused and there has been no tax issues. And in 2017, the former finance minister, Taxation said that there is no reason for the administrative agencies to refrain from citing the facts determined by the criminal court. The nature of the red envelopes in the Tai Ji Men case was already determined to be gifts rather than taxable income by the Supreme Court 10 years ago. Therefore, there is no issue of taxable income in the case, said Mr. Yan. And this is the biggest issue that Tai Ji Men faces and why so many of the dizi have chosen to speak up on this platform today. And we hope you gain some insight into this topic. And it's very important that we look into it as a world citizen to make sure that this gets resolved and this doesn't happen again. And so with that said, this is what our focus will be on today. And with an organization that has always promoted and been a strong advocate for human rights, the Association of World Citizens, the president has sent in his best wishes and message to highlight for today's event. They have been highlighting conditions for spiritual minorities, the poor, the handicapped, tribal populations, and such, to make sure that every single person's human rights is protected. So please let us welcome Dr. Renee Wadlow, President of the Association of World Citizens.
Dear friends, the Association of World Citizens is pleased to celebrate with many other friends of Taiwan this 11th January Judicial Day, when in 1943 China ended the extraterritorial provisions which it had been forced into. In 1943, the extraterritoriality provisions signed with states such as the USA and the United Kingdom were no longer of use, since these states had become allies in the fight to liberate the whole of China from Japanese occupation, which still held certain areas. Extraterritoriality provisions, which shielded certain foreign citizens, such as those of the USA and England, but also others, from Chinese courts, was a denial of equality before the law, a fundamental aspect of the rule of law. The rule of law must treat all equally and fairly, be they citizens, non-citizens, or stateless. There are in all countries groups and individuals who are marginalized, such as spiritual minorities, the poor, the handicapped, tribal populations, sexual minorities, those in prisons, migrants from within the country, usually rural to urban, and migrants across frontiers. A major role of the Association of Real Citizens in the United Nations human rights bodies in Geneva has been to highlight the conditions of such marginalized section of the organizations and population. Such human rights advocacy is often difficult, as governments use their influence to limit the impact of non-governmental voices. Human rights and their implementation are rarely separated from broader questions of geopolitical considerations. Thus, there's a growing role of transfrontier networking among non-governmental organizations, i.e., a chronicle human rights violation issue in a country can draw international attention as it can become a global issue and cannot be overlooked. Human freedom, to be meaningful, requires the progressive realization and implementation of the rights set forth in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the two international covenants, the Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, and the Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. A vital prerequisite for the implementation of human rights is that the covenants be widely known by both professional groups, but especially by the wider population. Thus, we have been particularly interested in the way Taiwan has held reviews of its obligations of the two covenants and the follow-up on the recommendations of the international experts who carry out the reviews. In particular, the taxpayers' human rights. Tax system is used in Taiwan as a way to discriminate religious and spiritual minorities, such as Tai Ji Men tax case, which has been dragging on for 24 years and still facing ongoing discrimination. The rule of law becomes endangered if the way the law is carried out seems unfair in the eyes of many, and if no punishment mechanism is in place to deter the unlawful officials. Thus, we have been in close contact with friends and colleagues in Taiwan who are working actively for fairness and the respect of the rule of law in dealing with taxation issues. Taxation is an aspect of government policy and practice which touches each citizen and each worker, citizen or not. Citizens of the world work for a society of mutual respect and considerations for the feelings and emotions of each individual. We are sure that on this vital judicial day, all will pledge their minds and hearts to a just and fair rule of law.
Thank you, Dr. Renee Wadlow. And yes, we agree that for human freedom to be meaningful, it would require the progressive realization and implementation of the rights set forth in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the two international covenants. And it is important that these rights are widely known by both professional groups and wider population to ensure implementation. And today, we sincerely hope that the Tai Ji Men case, a human rights violation case, would be shared, as Dr. Wadlow has said, that such problems may be within a country, but can draw international attention as it can become a global issue and cannot be overlooked. Dr. Renee Wadlow has many insightful articles published online, and you are very welcome to read through them on www.awcungeneva.com. So thank you, Dr. Wadlow. And next, we'd like to welcome Dr. Hong Daozi, who is the Vice President of the Association of World Citizens. Welcome, Dr. Hong, for his remark.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good day. I would like to thank you all for attending today's conference and extend my best regards. January 11th is Judicial Day. We are here to commemorate this important day in relation to fundamental human rights. We consolidate academic research results and best practices to promote public awareness of the importance of tax and judicial reforms, as well as transitional justice. We urge the government to listen to the voices of the people, and we urge government officials, academics, and legal professionals to work together to realize human rights-based justice with love and conscience. In a democratic country governed by the rule of law, everyone is equal before the law and must act in accordance with the law. Judicial independence is imperative to ensure that the other branches of government do not overstep the law or sacrifice people's rights by illegal means for the benefit of a few. The core value of the judiciary is to protect human rights, maintain social order, and enhance collective well-being. It is encouraging to see that the general public's trust in judges and the credibility of trials have improved in 2020, according to a survey by the Judicial Yuan. However, the public's dissatisfaction with judicial reform deserves more attention and review in terms of the essential meaning of justice and the people, as well as the demand for human rights-based democracy. Criminal penalties and taxation are the two main sources of pain caused by the government, as they involve the deprivation of people's lives, freedom, and property. Whether law enforcement officers and tax officers apply the law and administer policy in accordance with human rights, and the law has a profound impact on the people, and is an important factor in earning the trust of the people. In addition to the review of laws and systems, the real essence of judicial reform lies in the government's willingness to honestly deal with all cases of injustice and ensure proper redress to prevent the same mistakes from being repeated. This is the real reform that people desire. Only through fair and impartial justice can people's lives be well protected, and everyone can live and work in peace and happiness. The Chinese translation of judiciary has two words, 司, which means people, and 法, which means laws. It is people that enforce and follow the law. People breaking the law can be dealt with by the judiciary, while law enforcers that break the law can be held accountable by the law. However, this depends on whether those in power act or ignore it. Those who hold power should hold themselves and expect to be held to the strictest standards. We all make mistakes. It is a great virtue to know our own mistakes and correct them. The Chinese character for correction consists of two parts, self and article. In ancient times, there were wise kings who made imperial decrees to punish themselves for their own mistakes. And today, there are public officials signing a petition to punish themselves for making mistakes. Their legacies will live on forever. These kings and officials act in accordance with their conscience. If people can correct and redress their mistakes, they will be able to act prudently in the future. Laws are external regulations, while conscience is internal regulation. Everyone is endowed with conscience. It is the source of life. When everyone safeguards his or her conscience and law enforcers are people-centered, adhere to the rule of law, administer their duties in accordance with the law, and uphold human rights values, human rights protection can be realized. The government needs to love and protect its people and practice conscience-guided governance. Only when conscience-driven policies are combined with conscience-driven administration can conscience-driven politics be created. Only when conscience-driven laws are combined with conscience-driven law enforcement can conscience-driven judiciary be created. The government needs to calm the people's hearts and make them happy. These principles lay an important foundation for human rights for the nation and create positive energy to help stabilize the world. As we bid farewell to 2020 and usher in 2021, we enter a world where the greater environment is deteriorating. The world is more chaotic, and the challenges we face are daunting. Although the future is unpredictable, as long as we have love in our hearts, think kind thoughts, apply our conscience, and grasp opportunities to do good things to benefit ourselves and others, we have a chance to move the world in a better direction. I thank you for your participation. Let's move forward together with hope and work together for the well-being of all our citizens and for social justice and equality. Once again, thank you for walking with us on the road to reform. May you all be blessed with peace, health, and success.
As we heard from Dr. Hong, the core values of the judiciary are to protect human rights, maintain social order, and enhance collective well-being. When kings and officials act in accordance with their conscience, applying wisdom to distinguish true from false and right from wrong, they can exercise fair and impartial justice and protect their legacies forever. King Solomon famously comes to mind, using wisdom to distinguish true from false when two women claimed to be the mother of a child. When he threatened to cut the child in half, the real mother was willing to surrender the child to protect it from death. As in historical times, we have recently seen many examples of the importance of using wisdom to distinguish true from false, to exercise fair and impartial justice. We are very pleased to present a panel of experts who will share with us their insights on the importance of the judiciary. Our first panelist is Professor Kenneth Jacobson of Temple University of Law in Philadelphia, who will share key principles on the role of the judiciary.
I want to thank you for this invitation to participate in this very important conference on legal reform and tax justice on the eve of the Judicial Day in Taiwan. It's a very important day, Judicial Day. It marks this year the 76th anniversary of the treaty among Taiwan, the United States, and the United Kingdom, recognizing the independence of the judiciary in Taiwan. My experience as a lawyer, as a law professor, and as a scholar suggest a very simple proposition, that there are two primary functions of a democracy. One is to prevent the state and protect the state from external threats to that democracy. And the second is the protection of its citizens in the rule of law, in due process of law, and the administration of justice. If the state succumbs to its enemies, to external threats, all is lost. But democracy also is doomed when internal forces within that state deprive its citizens of due process, of the rule of law, of the fair administration of justice, and equally important, in respect for basic human rights. There is something and somewhat of a lack of confidence in Taiwan in the judicial system, something of a distrust, which is very important to discuss on this eve of Judicial Day. And I've read the inaugural remarks of your Honorable Chief Justice Su, the president of the Judicial Yuan, on November 1st, 2016. And even then, the Honorable Chief Justice warned of a dangerous crisis confronting the judiciary in Taiwan, a warning sign of irreversible harm unless reforms were made. And that warning by the Honorable Chief Justice is as true today as it was then. The Chief Justice proposed several reforms that also are true today as they were then. First, the Chief Justice advocated for an independent judiciary. Second, the Chief Justice demanded respect for human rights. And third, the Chief Justice emphasized the importance of the rule of law and the preservation and administration of justice. But how do we restore confidence in the judiciary when those in power refuse to recognize the decisions of the judiciary? How do we restore confidence in the system of due process when rogue government agents ignore the rulings of the judiciary? The Criminal Division of the Supreme Court of Taiwan in 2007 ruled that the gifts that were made by the dizi were gifts and were not taxable income. The Taipei High Administrative Court, the Supreme Administrative Court, issued the same ruling. And that is that there was no tax liability for any year. But what are the effects of those rulings? What are the effects of those rulings if they're not honored by the prosecutor who receives bonuses for illegal tax assessments? What are the effects of those rulings when other members of government do not honor them and do not respect them and do not observe them? And when they seize property illegally and thumb their nose at justice, it undermines the respect for the rule of law, it undermines due process, and it undermines democracy. You know, those watching this video know that we in the United States just went through a very challenging time. We had a hotly contested election for President of the United States, followed by equally hotly contested court challenges to the validity and fairness of that election throughout the United States, including the United States Supreme Court. And whatever your politics, it really doesn't matter. The fact is that our courts issued orders on the fairness and the validity of that election, and those orders have to be and will be followed by everyone, including the President of the United States, because no person is above the law in any democracy. So how do we restore confidence in the judiciary in Taiwan? How do we protect the rights of the citizens of Taiwan on this eve of Judicial Day? There's got to be effective leadership, but leadership can't come just from the courts themselves. They've done their jobs. They've issued their rulings. It's up to other branches of the government and other members of government to observe those rulings, to enforce those rulings, to abide by those rulings, and to recognize the rule of law. Otherwise, democracy suffers. And democracy will be under attack, not by the enemies from the outside, but in the form of rogue government officials from within. So I thank you again for the invitation to speak at this conference. It's a very, very important conference. I wish you all the best. And certainly I wish for a proper outcome for this very, very unfortunate and illegal tax case that has been perpetuated for 24 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Jacobson, for your speech today and your years of support and participation to help resolve the Tai Ji Men tax case. Indeed, as you mentioned, democracy is doomed when the internal forces within that state deprive its citizens of due process of the rule of law, of fair administration of justice, and respect for basic human rights. And we truly hope that the judicial system can really focus on this key point. And as Professor Jacobson also said, no person is above the law in any democracy. So we anticipate that the yuans of Taiwan will respect each other and truly restore confidence in the judiciary in Taiwan and resolve the Tai Ji Men tax case. So thank you. And next, we'd like to welcome Dr. Massimo Introvigne, founder and director of the New Center for Studies and New Religious.
Good morning. I'm Massimo Introvigne. I'm a professor of sociology in Italy and managing director of CESNUR, the Center for Studies on New Religions in Torino, Italy. It's a great honor and pleasure for me to participate in this important judicial day and to share some reflections about tax justice. I understand many participants are from Taiwan, and my perspective is rather a Western perspective. In the West, since the Middle Ages, the idea of justice, including tax justice, came from Christianity and the reflection of Christian theologians whose social doctrine or teaching about society was based on two principles: the principle of solidarity and the principle of subsidiarity. The principle of solidarity is that, to put it simply, we are all in the same boat. We citizens should help each other, and one way is helping through taxes. If one of us has a job and somebody else does not have a job, the one who has a job will pay taxes to support the poor guy who doesn't have a job. So the principle of solidarity is the foundation of the duty to pay taxes. But this is only one of the two principles regulating a good society. There is a second principle, the principle of subsidiarity, which the Protestant called the principle of sphere sovereignty, but more or less they were the same. The Catholics would use subsidiarity, the Protestants would use sphere sovereignty to indicate the same reality, that each of us is sovereign in his or her own sphere, and the state should respect this liberty and sovereignty without infringing of it. The state should respect the sphere of liberty of private citizens, of families, of local communities, of businesses, and certainly of religion institutions. If the state is not fair, if the state exaggerates in taxation, if the process of taxation and the recourses open to taxpayers in case of illegal taxations are not fair, are not clear, are not working, in this case, the taxpayer, be it a single citizen or a corporate entity, such as a business or a city or a religious body, lose their liberty. So, two principles. Principle of solidarity. Yes, it is the right to pay taxes, to contribute to the state and to contribute to the well-being of the less fortunate. But also, number two, principle of subsidiarity or sphere sovereignty. The taxes should be fair, the taxing process should be fair, the tax administration should be fair and not excessive, and should always respect the sphere of autonomy of the individuals, the families, and the corporate bodies, including religious institutions. Now, it's not easy, of course, to combine the principle of solidarity with the duty to pay taxes and the principle of subsidiarity with the duty of the government and of the administration to make the process of taxation fair and legal. But that's the key of democracy. There is no democracy without fair and transparent taxation and without recourses for the taxpayers when the taxpayers believe something wrong happening to them. Economists tell us that since the modern states become more and more complicated, the bureaucracies become more and more complicated, the risk that this delicate balance between solidarity and subsidiarity is broken, these risks, in fact, grow. But that's the challenge of modern democracies. We should keep these risks in check. In practical terms, we should make sure of two things. Number one, that the quantity of taxation is not exaggerated. But number two, which perhaps is more important than number one, that the quality of tax process respects the principle of democracy. And that means that the tax process should be clear, should be transparent, it should allow taxpayers to represent their reasons, to be heard, to have their fair day in a court of law. Now, this is, I believe, one reason why so many experts of religious liberty and of tax justice throughout the world are now extremely focused on the case of Tai Ji Men in Taiwan. Because this is kind of a textbook case of how the principle of subsidiarity or sphere sovereignty is not working. It is not working because the sphere of liberty of Tai Ji Men dizi is not respected, because the sphere of liberty of Tai Ji Men academies as spiritual organizations is not respected, and it is not working because tax bureaucrats are not kept in check by the law. In fact, what we have seen in the Tai Ji Men case in Taiwan is that initially a magistrate, Mr. Hu, was more or less free to act against the law. And subsequently, tax officers were also left more or less free to act against the law. And third, the taxpayers, in this case, Dr. Hong and Tai Ji Men, didn't have effective recourses when they were wronged. Yes, they won cases in court, but in practice, these victories didn't lead to justice. So, what to do? It seems to me that one of the problems in Taiwan is the system of bonuses. Getting the bonuses encourages rogue tax bureaucrats to be more and more rogue. But more in general, I believe the Tai Ji Men case is so important because it calls for the tax system in Taiwan and throughout the world to enact solidarity. The Tai Ji Men case teaches tax systems in Taiwan and throughout the world, while they claim to enact solidarity, to respect subsidiarity, and to respect the liberty of individual taxpayers and of corporate taxpayers, which is all more important when religious liberty is also at stake. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Introvigne, for today's speech. Yes, it's very true that states should respect liberty without infringing it, and the taxing process should be fair and not excessive. There is no democracy without fair and transparent taxation. It is unfortunate that the sphere of Tai Ji Men liberty is not respected. But we do thank you for your support for the Tai Ji Men case and providing insights in such clarity. Dr. Introvigne has been delegating the articles for Bitter Winter, a magazine on religious liberty and human rights. He has also included the Tai Ji Men case in the publishing. We invite you to visit the website for the Tai Ji Men articles and, of course, many other meaningful articles. So thank you, Dr. Introvigne. And now we'd like to welcome Mr. Willy Falter, founder and director of Human Rights Without Frontiers.
Thank you for giving me the floor on this important judicial day in Taiwan. I'm assuming that quite a number of people in Europe and North America watching this conference may not know the history of the Judicial Day commemorated in Taiwan. The origin of the Judicial Day goes back to the time of the Republic of China before the Communist Party took over in 1949. The Judicial Day dates back to the 11th of January 1943, when the Republic of China recovered sovereignty of its judicial system through a treaty with the United States and the United Kingdom, which ended the extraterritoriality of their national judicial system in China. This historical day is particularly meaningful for all Chinese and provides an opportunity for bar associations, human rights NGOs, and all citizens in Taiwan to push their government for judicial reform. Along these lines, another anniversary was commemorated 2 weeks ago in the United Kingdom, the martyrdom of Thomas Becket, Archbishop of Canterbury, 850 years ago. Thomas Becket was forced to forfeit all his property and flee the country because he dared defy the king in a matter that would have made the church subservient to the state. Years later, after the intervention of the Pope, Thomas Becket was allowed to return to England. However, he continued to resist the king's oppressive interference in church affairs. And finally, the king had had enough of Thomas Becket's stalwart defense of religious faith and reportedly exclaimed, "Will no one rid me of this meddlesome priest?" This statement led to the assassination of Thomas Becket by Knights of the King in the Cathedral of Canterbury. The fate of Tai Ji Men presents some similarities with the ordeal of Thomas Becket. Tai Ji Men also followed its conscience. When the state of Taiwan started to persecute this movement through the National Tax Administration in the early 1990s. Tai Ji Men believed in the rule of law and successfully challenged in the courts the state's attempts to force it to pay undue taxes. However, a knight of the state, Prosecutor Hu, with the ultimate goal being to kill Tai Ji Men, financially. Taiwanese citizens need safeguards against abuses of the law by the state, its administrations, and its public servants. According to public polls, they feel that they are not protected, and their perception of the judiciary is rather negative. In July 2019, the Judicial Yuan released the results of a judicial public opinion survey. Surprisingly, only 27% of the public were satisfied with the judicial system. Those who were dissatisfied were in the majority. According to globaleconomy.com, which publishes an annual country ranking about the state of the rule of law, Taiwan was ranked 28 out of 193 countries in 2019. However, laws can be good in Taiwan, but if law enforcement officials do not act in accordance with procedural justice and abuse their power, the state administrations and a deficient judiciary can cause suffering to the people, the deprivation of liberty and property. In the Tai Ji Men case, the problem was the tax administration and a prosecutor. In the late August 2020, Taiwan's National Taxation Bureau arbitrarily seized and auctioned properties that belonged to Dr. Hong Tao-Tse, the founder and the spiritual leader of the Tai Ji Men. This intervention was allegedly due to a tax bill dating back to 1992, despite this bill having been successfully contested through Taiwanese courts. The latest move of the Taxation Bureau fits a 24-year-long pattern of prejudice against Tai Ji Men and its spiritual leader. It is also likely retaliation for several previous tax cases concerning Tai Ji Men that the Taxation Bureau lost in courts. Some suspect there was a profit-making objective behind this auction. First, officers of the National Tax Bureau normally receive a bonus based on the taxes they have collected. Second, officers of the enforcement agency also receive a bonus from the enforcement results of the auction. And finally, government officers involved in the Tai Ji Men case, both at the National Tax Bureau and the enforcement agency, received a bonus from handling the case. Some scholars suspect that the case against Tai Ji Men was fabricated because of all these alluring bonuses. The case of Tai Ji Men highlights the need for reform in the Taiwanese judicial system, especially the administrative litigation system. Our first recommendation at Human Rights Without Frontiers is to annul the bonus system, as it creates incentives that can lead to undue fiscal and judicial harassment. Our second recommendation is to sanction those in state administrations and the judiciary who are found to be negligent or to have abused their power. I thank you for your attention during my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Fautre. And it's unbelievable that the perception of the judiciary from the public is rather negative. Only 27% of the public were satisfied. And as Mr. Fautre mentioned, that Tai Ji Men follows its conscience, and we hope that the law enforcement officials could also do the same, because even if the laws are good, if they are not fair, it can cause suffering to the people. And this could happen all around the world. And that's why the Tai Ji Men case is a very good example for us to look at. And so I think Mr. Fultre brought up two very good points where that Taiwan should annul the bonus system to prevent illegal and abuse of power, and also sanction those who are negligent and have abused their power as officials, government officials. So we thank you for your efforts to help Tai Ji Men with the case. And so we've seen from our speakers, our international experts who have spoke today, that they have spent a great amount of time and energy to look into the Tai Ji Men case, because we hope that through this as a textbook material that we can all look at it, help to push for it to be resolved, and for justice to not only shine above Tai Ji Men but also on Taiwan. And so hopefully in the future, the satisfaction percentage of Taiwanese people on the judiciary could improve in actuality, and not just a ranking by how perfect the law is set. So we thank our experts around the world for your support. And now we'll hand it over back to Michael for the next section.
Our next panelist is Dr. Jennifer Huang. We would like to have her share her thoughts with us. Jennifer?
Yeah, thanks, Michael. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak at this forum today to celebrate the Taiwan's annual Judicial Days, first held on January 11, 1943. I would like to bring attention to the foundation in which democracy, freedom, and human rights are built up on in the United States. The United States Constitution clearly established the separation of power and checks and balances between the different levels of government and between the different branches of government. A famous court case that demonstrates such practice is Gideon versus Wainwright. This case set the precedent that everyone charged with a crime is entitled to have competent legal representation. Gideon was charged with stealing a small amount of money from a vending machine. When he was arrested, he asked for a lawyer because he was charged for small crimes. Florida state law said that if he wanted a lawyer, then he would have to pay for it. Gideon had no money to pay for a lawyer, and he was convicted and sent to prison. Gideon saw the injustice in this. He realized that had he been rich, he would have had a lawyer and not gone to prison. Gideon went through the United States court system to seek the justice that he deserved. Gideon was denied justice every state of the way. He appealed to the Florida court and the Florida Supreme Court. Finally, Gideon asked the United States Supreme Court to consider whether it was justice for only rich people to have lawyers. In the United States, the legislature makes the laws and the executive enforce them, but it is the courts who decide whether the laws and their enforcement are fair. Despite having been denied justice, when the Supreme Court came to decide Gideon's position, they agreed that it was unfair for only the rich to have lawyers. This decision changed all the laws in the United States, limiting who could have a lawyer in court. Thanks to Gideon's tenacity, everyone who is arrested in the United States can have access to a lawyer without charge. This due process shows how a nation can balance the powers of each branch to ensure justice for all people. The courts are branches that make the determination of whether the laws are just and fair, and it is up to executive branch to follow the court's final decision. However, unlike the United States, with its systems of checks and balance, the president of Taiwan's Judicial Yuan, Mr. Zhong Li-Xu, spoke again about the importance of judicial independence at the 75th Judicial Festival academic seminar in Taiwan this past year. To achieve justice, it is crucial that all branches of government cooperate and respect the decisions of each branch. If one branch ignores the ruling of the others and chooses to pursue its own agenda with complete autonomy, then how can justice prevail? As a Tai Ji Men did, I have been practicing Qigong for more than 25 years. Unfortunately, during this time, I have had the misfortune to witness the unjust persecution and continued unfounded prosecution of Tai Ji Men to the point that now his property has been auctioned off to pay for illegally accessed tax liabilities. The National Taxation Bureau under the elective Yuan had not followed the court, ruling illegally seized Tai Ji Men's property. Citizens are denied access to speedy and fair judicial review. The Tai Ji Men test case demonstrates this defect. At today's annual judicial days, citizens' heavy hearts and crying ears for a healthier system of government with separation of power and checks and balance. It has been 25 years. Tai Ji Men is still fighting for justice, for human rights, and for fair tax and religious freedoms. Thank you for supporting Tai Ji Men Qigong Academy, and thank you all.
Thank you, Jennifer. I really appreciate you highlighting the vital role of the judiciary in balancing government overreach and correcting injustices committed by the other branches of government. Of course, and without a strong mechanism to force the other branches of government to follow those rules, we will not have true justice, as you highlighted. Our next panelist is Charlotte Lee, a lawyer and human rights observer of the Association of World Citizens. Hi, Charlotte.
Hello, thank you, Michael. Hello, everyone, I'm Charlotte. Thank you for providing me this opportunity to share our observation of Tai Ji Men test case from human rights protection perspective. We all know that judicial system is the last line of defense of social stability. People have high expectation for judicial system to uphold justice and settle disputes. Judiciary also play an important role in the division of state power. It is expected judiciary power will be exercised to correct the wrongs so as to protect citizens from the abuse of administrative power. Therefore, judiciary is supposed to protect the people's basic rights and to provide effective remedies when people's rights are violated. However, we can see from the Tai Ji Men case that the judiciary power has been abused by a fame-seeking prosecutor to prosecute innocent group. The groundless criminal charge was eventually cleared and ruled in favor of Tai Ji Men Zhang Menren. However, the test case derived from the criminal charge continued to haunt Tai Ji Men, despite of repeated favor ruling for Tai Ji Men Zhang Menren by administrative court. The judiciary power is not performing its function properly and not helping Tai Ji Men to redress the case. In fact, Tai Ji Men and Zhang Menren and his wife have never owned any taxes. They should not be taxed or to see their property being auctioned off. So today, I would like to emphasize the case from several aspects. First, the groundless persecution and illegitimate taxation. So let's discuss from the fake witness and fake victim in the bill of indictment. The nature of Tai Ji Men Qigong Academy has never been changed since its inception in 1966, and there has never been any tax issues. Prosecutor Ho calls tax agent Shi Yuesheng to testify against Tai Ji Men. But Shi Yuesheng has never investigated Tai Ji Men, but he claimed Tai Ji Men is a crane school and may involve tax evasion. Prosecutor Ho filed a charge accordingly without verifying this statement. Meanwhile, he transferred this case to Tax Department for taxation. During the trial, criminal judge questioned almost 200 witnesses, including tax agents, and confirmed that none of the witnesses listed by the prosecutor was true. The name list of self-help association urged by prosecutor Ho was found by the court and Control Yuan that the name list is inaccurate. There are deceased people still on the list, or the names are repeated. So the prosecutor also admits during the Control Yuan's investigation, he didn't validate the list at all. So it is confirmed that there is no victim in the Tai Ji Men case, and the so-called self-help association does not exist at all. Fake evidence. The court reviewed each and every one of the 12 boxes of evidence presented by Prosecutor Ho with no finding of evidence supporting the charge. The pitchwood sword claimed by the tool used for racing gambling by the Prosecutor Ho was not present in the court at all. It is confirmed that no evidence in supporting of the charge made by the prosecutor. The next is the misleading numbers. On the day of search, Prosecutor Ho distributed fake news to media. So headlines on the next day said Tai Ji Men fraud of 3.1 billion and suspect of tax evasion. However, according to the bank statement as of December 28, 1996, the two bank accounts only had balance around 610,000. Tai Ji Men is not for-profit business organization or a crane school. Tax Department did not investigate the nature of the money and tax Tai Ji Men based up on the fabricated number in the wrongful bill of indictment. The tax bill were not valid since the beginning, and this should all be invalid. Second point, the red envelope is gifting in nature and should be tax exempt. Per the Taiwan Income Tax Act, the property acquiring by gifting is not subjected to taxes. Also, the gifting tax is to be levied on the gift giver, not the receiver. The red envelope presented by dizi to shifu is gifting in nature. However, the tax department ignored the nature of the gifting and treated the money as taxable income. The tax decision is against tax code and should be invalid taxation. Meanwhile, some dizi aggregate ordering of uniforms on behalf of brother and sister was volunteer work, which is not for profit and Zhang Menren is not involved. The tax agency levy the business tax on Zhang Menren is a mistake, and of course it is invalid from the beginning. And third point, illegitimate tax decision identified the Control Yuan. In 2002, Control Yuan conducted investigation and outlined the 8 flaws of Prosecutor Ho during the Tai Ji Men case. The report confirmed that the case was prosecuted with obvious contradiction between evidence and indictment. This is in violation of the principle of legal evidence. Control Yuan requests the Ministry of Justice to take disciplinary action against Prosecutor Ho. So tax decisions based up on illegal bill of indictment are therefore not valid at all. In 2009, Control Yuan conducted another investigation and identified 7 violation law by tax department in the Tai Ji Men tax case. And tax authority also admits it's wrong during the investigation. So it is very clear that the tax decision is against law. Fourth, no violation of tax code is confirmed by 3-tier criminal court. On July 13, 2007, after 3-tier court trials, the criminal court reached the final conclusion that the red envelope presented by dizi to shifu is gifting in nature, and therefore, according to paragraph 17 of Article 4 of Income Tax Act, it should be tax exempt. And the aggregate ordering of uniform on behalf of brother and sister was volunteer work, which is not for profit. And the wrongful detained defendants all receive state compensation. So it is confirmed by the court that Tai Ji Men Zhangmenren did not owe any taxes. Fifth, in the public hearing in Legislative Yuan, the Minister of Finance and Central Tax Agency promised to revoke the enforcement of 1992 tax bill and to settle Tai Ji Men case within 2 months. After the public hearing, Ministry of Finance sent official letter to Central Tax Agency legislator demanding Central Tax Agency to revoke enforcement according to the Article 40 of Tax Collection Law. Central Tax Agency and Miaoli Division also sent official letter to Hsinchu Enforcement Agency, asking to stop enforcement as per Article 9 of Administrative Enforcement Law. So it is confirmed that Ministry of Finance and Tax Department are all in the opinion that the Zhangmenren's property should not be subject to compulsory enforcement or being auctioned. According to the above, all the State Department and official documents support the claim that Tai Ji Men Zhangmenren did not owe any taxes. The auction is totally groundless. However, Tax Department only correct 5 years tax bill to zero, leaving tax bill for 1992 to compulsory enforcement. In fact, the Supreme Administrative Court in 1918 has ruled in favor of Tai Ji Men again and recognized Tai Ji Men as a Qigong and martial art Menpai. It is also confirmed that the court ruling of 1992 does not take into account the fact recognized of criminal court and the fact that the tax department had officially admitted that Tai Ji Men is not a crime school. Therefore, it can be inferred that the tax decision and ruling of 1992 is incorrect and against law. The case should not have been enforced. In 2020, the Taipei High Administrative Court also sent 2 official letters to Central Tax Agency and Hsinchu Division of Administrative Enforcement Agency, urging 1990 bill to be treated the same way as another year and revoke enforcement as per Article 40 of Tax Code. All support that the invalid tax bill should have never been put into enforce. However, the tax agent still insists on having the compulsory enforcement order executed, and Tai Ji Men Zhangmenren's property was auctioned in August 2020. So it is very obvious from the Tai Ji Men case that when the state power is abused, human rights protection is no longer possible. The administrative court is supposed to settle the dispute between taxpayer and tax department. However, the administrative court failed its mission and let taxpayers struggle for more than 20 years. It's worth our deep thoughts on the judicial days. Whether we have the human rights on par with international standard is up to the government. So we expect the government to take action to correct the wrongs, implement judicial reform, and uphold fundamental human rights. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charlotte Lee, for highlighting the defects of the Tai Ji Men tax case, the judiciary's ultimate success in using wisdom to distinguish true from false. However, their ultimate inability to fully rectify the injustices committed by the other branches of government, particularly the Taiwan Tax Authority. We appreciate all of the insights of our panelists, and we want to introduce our next set of panelists that constitute citizens from around the world who will share their personal experiences in Tai Ji Men and the importance of rectifying past failures to protect human rights and the need for persistence to achieve true justice. Our first panelist is Matthew Chen, who is a student in the United States. Matthew?
Hi. Hello, everyone. My name is Matthew Chen, and I am very honored to be able to speak in this conference. So I'm a college student studying in Boston, and taking a look at the Taiwanese government, we can observe its countless violations of human rights seen through discrimination, exploitation, and corruption, which not only allows us to see how ignorance and selfishness manifested among those in power, it further demonstrates the irresponsibility and therefore fragility of the government system. The government of Taiwan has already existed for more than 100 years, and naturally, I assume the government will learn and reform from its past failures to prevent the downfall and implosion of the state. Governments should operate in a way to maximize transparency for the benefit of people. And as a youth, a very obvious and disturbing human rights violation is the Tai Ji Men taxation issue that has been prolonged for over 24 years. Tai Ji Men Qigong Academy is a cultural menpai that has thousands of years of history passed down from shifu to dizi. And it is common for dizi to pay respect through red envelopes enclosed with money, which symbolizes our gratitude. This resulted in hundreds of articles pointing at Tai Ji Men for its falsely accused tax evasion. And it is absurd to me how, although the Supreme Court admits Tai Ji Men's innocence, there is 1 year of illegal tax bill that the Bureau persists on. We believe that the taxation officials are using this bill as an excuse to reward themselves with tax bonuses. And the government had even auctioned off the properties of Tai Ji Men using this fake taxation bill. And I cannot quite understand how the entire government of Taiwan is allowing the Taxation Bureau and the Administrative Enforcement Agency to allow this auction. Both of them are using this tax bill to exploit money from us ordinary citizens. And this is an outrageous example of government corruption and exploitation of power. Innocent citizens are violated by the systemic terror simply due to our belief in justice. And the horribly opaque government operations cover up countless dirty transactions. In historical cases, corrupted governments often lead to socioeconomic instability and ultimately a downfall in a market, losing its stage among international competitors. And therefore, the continuation of the government corruption, infringing laws, and violating human rights will indefinitely contribute to a systemic failure and causing Taiwan to lose its position as a role model of democracy and social equality. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew, for highlighting the risks that we have when the judiciary and the government has failures in purging corruption from their offices and how it can destabilize the role and the leadership of those nations. And our next panelist is Lin Chen. She's a community manager from France.
Yes, hello everyone, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, good evening. It depends where you are. So I'm Lin Chen, and here is my story. In 1996, I was a college student majoring in French. On December 19, the press started to report a raid on Tai Ji Men by Investigation Bureau. My fellow students asked me about the reported fraud of Tai Ji Men. On December 24, I went back home for holiday. The house was empty, but has been searched. I was wondering what was going on. A phone call broke the silence. My father called and asked me to get some papers. And before he finished talking, someone took the phone from him and gave me an address in Taipei. Not having a clue, I took the papers and went to the address only to realize it was a Taipei Investigation Bureau. But I did not get a chance to see my father. My father was detained 4 months without any evidences of crime. I started to feel really scared as father is not with us. The following Christmas and Chinese New Year holiday were really bad for us. There was no holiday mood for any of us in the family. So during that period of time, we were all in deep blue and anxiety. I suspected being taped. I felt being pointed behind my back when wearing Tai Ji Men uniforms. Many years later, we realized mother tried to hide a lot of things for the protection of me and my sister. She was under a lot of pressure from my uncles who read biased reporting in the paper. They thought my father was a disgrace to the family, and my father was held in custody for months just because he did not yield to the intimidation from Prosecutor Ho and insisted that Dr. Hong has real kung fu. I received threatening notes in school. I was questioned by teachers and students. I filed reports with school authority, but there was nothing they could do. Later, I and my sister got a chance to go abroad for study, so we took off. I came to France and she went to the US. We just wanted to get away from Taiwan. My father received state compensation for wrongful detention after 10 years, but tax office continued to ignore the evidences from Tai Ji Men. Tax office and enforcement agency worked together to auction off properties of Tai Ji Men in the past August. My father did not want us to be worried, so he rarely discussed Tai Ji Men case with us. Even though father missed us a lot, we did not want to move back to Taiwan for security reasons. He passed away in 2014 and never got to see justice prevail in Tai Ji Men case. When I talked about Tai Ji Men case with my French friends, they were shocked. Some of them think we must have something wrong so that we were mistreated. This kind of saying really upsets me a lot, but I can understand. This is a result of biased reporting and common practice of blaming victims. However, I believe justice will eventually prevail, and we will insisted for so long and given so many chances to the evil government officers. It's about time justice will arrive after we have gathered so many supports from victims of abusive tax practices and human rights organizations. The lies of the evil government officers will be exposed, and we hope conscience will be inspired and justice prevail. Thank you.
Thank you, Ling Chair. I think what I got the most out of your sharing is how the risks of if the citizens lose faith in the government through their corrupt acts, how essentially both you and your daughter, or you and your sister, left the United States or left for the United States and France in order to avoid the risk of further injustice in Taiwan. And so that's a prime example of the Taiwan government officials losing the faith in the Taiwan government and ability to protect its citizens and the judiciary to do that. Our next guest, our panelist, is Jeff Chen, an engineer from the United States. Jeff?
Hi, my name is Jeff, and I have been a Tai Ji Men dizi since 1993. In Tai Ji Men, we learn to love, not to hate. But at this moment, it's really hard for me to say I love Taiwanese government. Yet still here I am, still giving my speech because there are still people I care and people I love, and they care about Taiwan. My parents, now in their 60s, my grandmoms, now in their 80s, they go to the presidential office with other brothers and sisters, rain or shine, huddled year after year to protest, hoping the government will make some changes. However, the government just ignore their voices year after year. Also, thank you Taiwanese government for teaching me the government isn't always telling the truth. Government can lie to people. Liars can get elected as government officials. The news is full of lies. Politicians lie to us for their own political gain. They do whatever they want in name of the government and to abuse their power over people. Thank you, Taiwanese government, for teaching me. We don't really need to follow any court decision. In 2007, Supreme Court already said Tai Ji Men didn't violate any tax codes. Tai Ji Men do not have any taxation responsibility for any previous years. Yet the National Taxation Bureau still keeps sending us tax bills for those previous years, saying we are tax evaders. What a joke. If the Taxation Bureau can just decide whatever they want to do, why would we have the court or the laws? So I would like to say being a tax official in Taiwan is absolutely the best job in the world. You don't need to follow any rules. You get bonuses for taxing people correctly or incorrectly. When the people file a lawsuit against you for any wrongful taxation, don't worry. Administrative court is your best friend. People almost always lose there. So come and apply for this job today and become a Taiwanese tax official. Next, I would like to say thank you, Taiwanese government, for making me a stronger person. When the Tai Ji Men case broke out, I was 11. Some of my friends and family members either laugh at me or look at me differently. Before I got a chance to fully understand why I joined Tai Ji Men, I was already told my shifu is a fraud and Tai Ji Men is a cult. This is too much for an 11-year-old kid. So to keep myself calm and peaceful, I know I need to just ignore them and become mentally stronger. Next, thank you, Taiwanese government, for forcing me out of my comfort zone. Yes, most of my friends and family are in Taiwan. However, I'm just too disappointed at this government and decide I'll never move back to Taiwan. And I'll never pay any tax dollar to Taiwan. To stay away from Taiwan, I have to stay away from all my friends and families and my memories. This is hard, but I'll never call Taiwan my motherland, and I'll never be comfortable to say I'm from Taiwan until the government makes some changes to close our case. Thank you, Taiwanese government, to help me become who I am, who feels so disappointed and helpless towards his own government, and who is ashamed of telling people he's from Taiwan. Finally, it's 2021. It's a new year. I wish the best for all the Taiwanese people. I wanted to say I wish the worst for all the terrible Taiwanese government officials. However, in Tai Ji Men, we learn to spread hope and to spread love and peace. So I hope then the Taiwanese government officials will find their conscience, apologize for what they did wrong, make an adjustment, and make this world a better place. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. I echo that the Tai Ji Men tax case has taught us a lot of things, whether that be technical knowledge when learning about laws like tax codes, or when we're learning to toughen up and continue on to do the right things. I believe that the positivity that we bring will allow for a brighter future. And next, I would like to introduce Yvonne, who is a Tai Ji Men dizi as well as an occupational therapist in the States. Yvonne.
Hi, thank you, Andrea. I'm Yvonne Lin. I am a licensed and registered occupational therapist in both California and Taiwan. Occupational therapy is a profession which focused on the patient's occupational justice and human rights. As occupational therapists, we design therapy activities based on the autonomy of the patients as well as their preference, thoughts, and routines. Once the patient's functions are impeded by the environment, we view it as occupation deprivation. Same as human rights. Once human rights are deprived by others, people don't have freedom and quality of living, then the physical and mental well-being of the people would be interfered. As a Taiwanese, I am proud of many aspects of Taiwan. However, many taxpayers' rights were deprived by Taxation Bureau in Taiwan, and Taiwanese government authorities could not balance the power. Looking on the biggest tax case in Taiwan, the Tai Ji Men tax case, thousands of dizis and their families suffered from deprivation of both physical and mental well-being for over 24 years. From the beginning, the Tai Ji Men tax case derived from a no evidence prosecution, wrong identification of gift as tuition, and unlawful process. Moreover, after 11 years, the Supreme Court had made the final decision that Tai Ji Men was verdict of not guilty. In addition, the executive yuan had ruled that the prosecutors had 8 unlawful executions, but the Taxation Bureau continued to issue tax bills and even illegally auctioned Tai Ji Men's assets. As a Tai Ji Men dizi practicing Qigong for 21 years, I acquired healthy condition, learned positive thinking, and spreaded love and peace and the concept of martial arts all over the world with brothers and sisters. Therefore, I felt even more unjust, and the negative impression in my childhood influenced my whole life. When I was 5, I could never forget seeing the news scene of my shifu being detained. Naive as I was, I doubted myself why my shifu, who I admired the most, would be detained. Most important of all, some of my family members distrusted my words and the good deeds that Tai Ji Men had done. When I grew up, I finally realized the truth and devoted myself to fight for all taxpayers' justice. So I participated more than 10 protest demonstrations in front of Taiwan governments and online conferences. However, it was sad to see that through 24 years of persecution, the Taiwanese judicial government still cannot revocate the unlawful tax bills and return Tai Ji Men's good reputation. At last, I hope to call upon all the taxpayers' rights. We have the obligation to pay legal tax, but we also have the rights to refuse paying illegal tax bills. Tai Ji Men tax case is the indicator of numerous unsolved illegal tax cases. How many people have 24 years to wait for justice to be served? We need judicial power to execute transitional justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne, for sharing your thoughts. I agree with you with what you said, how we have the obligation to pay taxes as citizens, but when it comes to illegal tax bills, it is our right to have justice in these situations and not pay those tax bills, which is what we have been fighting for the past 20 plus years. Next, I would like to invite Jeff Kuo, who is a Tai Ji Men dizi and currently a business development manager, to share his thoughts.
Thank you, Andrea, and everyone. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts on Tai Ji Men tax cases. I would like to compare the Internal Revenue Services in the 1990s versus the National Taxation Bureau in Taiwan. Taxation has been in existence since ancient times. It is a necessary means for a government, be it monarchy in the ancient times or democracy in the modern era, to function and support its continued existence. The government grants its tax collector the power to collect taxes from its people. If taxation is handled properly, the government and the people will work well together and both prosper. Otherwise, the system can falter, leaving all in despair, or worse, such as leading to a rebellion or a revolution. One significant case was the Boston Tea Party Rebellion, which led to the American Revolution in 1775. In 1819, the Supreme Court Justice John Marshall concluded the power to tax is the power to destroy. In the decades leading up to the 1990s, quota was the main metrics to evaluate IRS employees' performance. Illegal practices were encouraged by IRS divisional management to boost the division's performances. Some rogue agents are irresponsible, uninformed, or even malicious in their effort to meet the quota. They demanded unfairly excessive tax payments from taxpayers, garnished wages, or seized properties without going through proper procedures. Tales of despair, loss, and abandonment from taxpayers who had run up against such rogue agents were rampant. The horrible abuse by IRS personnel and the disturbing trends within the agency's culture was so morbid that its own agents testified the following in the 1990s from agent number 1. These tactics, which appear nowhere in the IRS manual, are used to extract unfairly assessed taxes from taxpayers, literally ruining families, lives, and businesses, all unnecessary and sometimes illegal. From agent number 2, revenue officers capitalize on the taxpayers' inherent fear of IRS and the intimidation that they can inflict on taxpayers without any consequence for their improper enforcement. From agent number 3, if the true number of instances of taxpayer abuse were ever known, the public would be appalled. If the public also ever knew the numbers of abuses covered up by the IRS, there could be a taxpayer revolt. If you think the IRS of the 1990s sound like a horrendous agency, then do you think it's alone in its heinous behaviors? Unfortunately, it is not. For a tax collection agency that behaves like the IRS in the 1990s, we don't need to look further than Taiwan's National Taxation Bureau, or NTB, an administrative enforcement agency, or AEA. The case in point is the Tai Ji Men tax injustice case. The monetary gifts followers give to their masters are considered gifts and not income. In Taiwan's tax code, if there is a gift tax, then the tax burden is on the gifter, not the giftee. The NTB issued tax bills to Tai Ji Men for the tax year 1991 to 1996, claiming the monetary gifts the master received have been business income and are subject to income taxes. Tai Ji Men was established in Taiwan in 1966. Prior to 1996, it never received tax bills from NTB, nor did it receive any further tax bills after 1996. In other words, the tax bills were anomalies. After 24 years of Tai Ji Men's effort and countless court and public hearings, the NTB finally revoked its own tax bills from the year 1991 and 1993 through 1996. However, it did not revoke the 1992 tax bill. While Tai Ji Men was still fighting the 1992 tax bill, the AEA illegally seized and auctioned off the lands that belonged to Tai Ji Men. In their handling of the Tai Ji Men case, NTB and AEA have both ignored proper procedures, blatantly ignored the laws, and have harmed the very taxpayers they are supposed to serve. There are many horror tax injustice stories like Tai Ji Men's case in Taiwan. Due to NTB's egregious and even illegal approaches in their handling of the tax collection in Taiwan, countless lives have been lost, families separated, and business destroyed. Does this sound like the IRS in the 1990s? I think you will agree it does. Fortunately, in 1998, through Senator William Ross's effort, the Internal Revenue Service Restructuring Act was passed in the Congress. The American people's confidence in the IRS has been restored. Today's the RSS mission reads to provide America's taxpayers top quality service by helping them understand and meet their tax responsibilities, and by applying the tax law with integrity and fairness to all. This is very good for the American people and the government. A tax collector's handling of its collection efforts has direct impact to the well-being of both the government and the taxpayers. Taiwan's NTB is acting like a beast roaming in the realm, wreaking havoc on Taiwan's taxpayers and government. While Taiwan's taxpayers know this all too well, Taiwan's government is either completely oblivious to the sinister threats like a boiling frog, or has chosen to ignore the elephant in the room. For the longevity of the Republic, we sincerely hope someone with the integrity and tenacity, like the late Senator William Ross, will come along and rectify NTB's systematic abuse of its power. Thank you for allowing me to share my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. I think it's really interesting seeing the connections you have drawn between historical events and the events that are occurring now. And although, as you said, there's already havoc caused in Taiwan by the Tax Bureau, I believe there's still time for a turnaround so that history doesn't repeat itself. Next, I would like to introduce Alan Lin, to share his ideas.
Thank you, Andrea. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the panelists. This is Alan. Thank you for the invite to participate in this webinar. Many of speakers share a number of real experience they have in regards to today's topic. They are really phenomenal to learn to help reforming the judicial system. Personally, my role is business manager in lighting manufacture and focus on business development and strategies for my company. I do observe quite a few issues in the last few years while working in this industry. As many of you know, China and United States have ongoing economic conflicts. Two most influential powerhouses and biggest economy in the world have set in many trade barriers between themselves. Many of firms need to come up different ways to help their business alive, or they are forced to be out of the industries. On top of that, last year, as well as all know, COVID-19 causes business impacts to many industries. Lucky enough, our company is able to find a way to keep our business running as usual. From this, I do observe without a proper tax system in place, that will make more business tough to survive. In Taiwan, just so many high-tech companies and have well-strong supply chain for semiconductors and electronic industries. And more young generation who want to start up their business with their innovation to achieve their dreams. Many of those new startup companies use stock package to recruit talented people. However, obviously there are an unfriendly tax system in Taiwan to prevent talented people coming to Taiwan. Back in year 2000, Mr. Ye, a scientist from US, brought back DNA chip technology to Taiwan. He received stock options as his compensation package. Before selling his shares, he asked National Tax Bureau, similar to IRS in US, for tax filing inquiry, and did not receive any response at all. Then after selling his stock shares in a year later, National Tax Bureau filed insane tax amount and used 40% tax of the stock face value, categorized as technology know-how item, not salary income item. Mr. Ye not only cannot get compensated fairly with his huge contribution to the industry, and was restricted to go back to the US to see his family. Due to that, he also got divorced with his wife. 10 years later, Control Yuan, a major government body in Taiwan, investigated this case and prevailed his justice at the end. Another major well-known case is Tai Ji Men Academy, a very long 25 years ongoing unjustified taxes without evidence. NTB violates the principle of consistency by treating monetary gift revenue for the year 1992 as cram school tuition, even though NTB correct the tax amount for the red envelope for the tax year 1991 and the tax year 1993 to 1996 to $0 amount. These two cases simply point out common issues in Taiwan. One, poor efficiency system to justify taxpayers' right. Number two, National Tax Bureau improper tax people and organizations. Lastly, not a transparent and non-consistent tax system for domestic and foreign entities. Here I do suggest the government in Taiwan can look into these problems, make a fairness tax system. In this trade war going on, there will be opportunities for many companies in Taiwan to expand their business, attract more foreign companies to make investments and recruit talent people from overseas. Without the reform of the tax system, it will be very tough for the companies to survive. Once again, thank you for the opportunity to share my insight and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, Alan. It's really insightful to hear the perspective that your business background has given you about the Taiwanese government and the changes that should be made. Next, I would like to invite Daphne, who is a journalist currently based in New York, to share her thoughts.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daphne. I'm currently in New York as a freelancer of news reporter. I used to work as a reporter and a producer both in Taiwan and the United States. I also work for Global People Daily News, a nonprofit news website. In 2019 and 2020, I also report some NGO seminars related to human rights in the United Nations. Today, my topic is while freedom of press deprives, democracy disappears. Since 2017, I have paid a lot of attention to an organization called Tax and Legal Reform League, which promotes tax reforms in Taiwan. The volunteers stand on the street all over Taiwan to promote taxpayer rights and call for the government to reform tax laws. On September 19, 2020, a 60-year-old volunteer, Mrs. Huang, held aside quietly by a roadside with some other volunteers without saying anything. However, there were about 20 police officers who interrogated her and then took her to the police station without telling her what crime she had committed. Later, she was accused of intimidation, public insult, defamation, and harm to personal data, and was even imposed a residence restriction. What could be happened during martial law time is happening now in the current democratic society. It represents that the administration authority was inappropriate and it violated fundamental human rights. As a reporter, what makes me disappointed is that there were very few reports or articles about this matter. Only a few breaking news on that day. Later on, when the Tax and Legal Reform League went to court to file a lawsuit, there was no related report or on any media or press about it, not to mention the follow-ups to this incident. On November 2nd, when some NGO held a big press conference for the incidents, there are but still non-major media or newspapers show up. Only some independent YouTubers or bloggers who fight for human rights issues did the live streaming. Unfortunately, we audience rarely see the serious human rights violation caused by the government on the TV or newspaper. Instead, we see a lot of the car accident news shot by the dash cam. It really makes us pointed. I want to say, where is the responsibility of being a media or press? The ruling party is Democratic Progressive Party, we call DPP, who was the promoter of Taiwan's democracy and the freedom of speech. In 1988, press ban was released in Taiwan. Then the people have the freedom of speech, publish, and the demonstration. Taiwanese finally enjoy the democracy. It is the driving force of the country. However, in the past couple of years, DPP is in power, but the media is gradually controlled by the government. What is the true freedom of press? First, none of the media should be turned to any party and cannot be controlled by any party or government. Instead, they should monitor the government. Recently, media management level in Taiwan have strong tendency to some particular party. There is no justice in the content. Second, the government should be tolerant to whom have the opposite or different opinions. The DPP fought for years to promote freedom of speech. However, when they become the ruling party, they become a dictator. There are fewer and fewer news with opposite opinions. Besides, the investigation shows that the ruling party spent a lot of money to pay the cyber warriors who try to control the younger generation through the social media. Recently, on December 12, 2020, a TV station called CTI with the opposite political standpoint from the ruling party was rejected to renew license by National Communications Committee. It was forced to drop out cable TV. It is the first news TV station which did not allow to renew license in the past 2 decades. From the facts above, freedom of press in Taiwan is controlled by the government. The administration and the legislation are controlled by the government too. The media doesn't take responsibility of supervision. Taiwan is towards centralization. Therefore, people cannot see the real problem and the truth. Then, more and more cases like Mrs. Huang and the innocent tax victims will occur. It will make the society unstable. I, as a citizen reporter, want to make a serious statement that Taiwan government violates human rights and control the freedom of press. We hope that any individuals and NGOs who care about human rights can condemn Taiwan government's wrongdoings. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daphne. Media is so impactful nowadays, and it's really eye-opening to hear stories that you have seen showing the sides of the Taiwanese government that many don't actually get to see. Next, we are going to watch a video of the story behind the book, Who Stole Their Youth?
I had fluctuating emotions reading this book. How could there be such absurd government? Really, absurd, absurd, absurd. It's just so out of the world. In real life, you're not satisfied with the service, you make a complaint to the customer service center, and immediately you get a phone call of an apology, and that's how it works. But it does not work with our government. While I was reading this book, 2 things came to my mind. What an absurd government! And what if it was me who had to face such absurdity? What was I supposed to do? Could I sustain 24 years? Could you? You or me may not endure a year or two, or even just a month, 2 months, right? All inequalities and injustices that exist in our society are unbearable, just like the painful declaration on the back cover of this book. Who knew our beloved country could hurt us so? Our tears were exhausted. Many people who were involved have passed away. We won't compromise anymore. We will bravely unveil the unreasonable administrative remedy system that traps people and makes them go in circles. People are going in circles and couldn't find a way out because they are fighting against the government machine that blocks the way. There is a huge black hole in Taiwan's taxation system. No one dared to reveal it before. But now I believe this case will definitely be redressed because the heaven and earth are watching. I believe injustice will eventually be rectified. I won't allow the truth to be treated as lies. I sincerely hope that Taiwan will become a country that truly values human rights, so that my children and grandchildren will be able to continue to live on this land of democracy and freedom. This is how I felt while I was going through this book. I very much want to terminate this absurd case. I decline to waste any more of my life on such absurdity. Over the years, I have noticed that the content of bestseller books usually benefits others as well as the author himself. Writing what one loves is self-benefiting. Loving it so much, then sharing is benefiting others. A book that benefits the author as well as the readers is an influential one. Most important of all, books should inspire people. This book inspires us to bravely move forward. It also inspires those who encounter difficulties to persevere. I believe this book will contribute greatly to the society and the country. It won't let down the heaven and earth. And hopefully, heaven and earth will help solve this case. Thank you all.
So now that we have seen the story behind the book, Who Stole Their Youth, I would like to welcome the author of the book, Ruby, to share her thoughts.
Hello, everyone. Good day. I'm Ruby Zhang. I'm one of the authors of Who Stole Their Youth. 24 years have passed, but many names and things remain engraved on our hearts, which we haven't forgotten and we will never forget. One can choose to hide these painful memories or to look back with tears of sadness and resentment. But we decided to bring to light these memories in hope to save this country and its people. I was one of the tens of thousands of victims of the Tai Ji Men case that started from December 1996. When the Tai Ji Men incident took place on December 19, 1996, newspaper released over 400 stories and the TV news broadcast the incident over 70 times, claiming Tai Ji Men was a money-grubbing group, a cult, a raising gamblings. For a long time, I could not turn on the TV, read the newspaper, wear a Tai Ji Men uniform in public, or mention Tai Ji Men during family gatherings. On a supposedly peaceful Christmas Eve in 1996, the houses of 5 of my Tai Ji Men brothers and sisters were searched by investigators. Some of them simply explained at the press conference that Tai Ji Men is a positive Qigong martial art group. Their houses were searched and they were even taken away for interrogation. Some were detained and barred from seeing any visitors, causing anxiety and tragedies in their family. The injuries suffered by 10 of 1,000 of Tai Ji Men families due to this incident cannot be undone. As I learned later on about how Prosecutor Ho threatened to extract confessions in Tai Ji Men case and release detail of investigation to the media, allowing media to create sensational stories on the investigation. I could not tolerate the behavior of the prosecutor, who, as a civil servant, was framing people this way. I began to realize being a law-abiding citizen is not enough. Citizens can be nice, but cannot offer to be naive, because there were a lot of illegalities in the searching process. This book has provided a lot of life-saving tips about protecting our own legal rights and the rights as taxpayers. Tai Ji Men disciple followed the national laws and provided the judge with many boxes of evidence during every court hearing. On September 25th, 2003, Judge Zhao Zilong pronounced Tai Ji Men innocent at the end of the first trial. This ruling came 7 years after Tai Ji Men incident broke out. Many brothers and sisters placed the photocopies of the ruling in front of the tombs of their family members, because some elderly brothers and sisters had passed away before the court decision was announced. On July 13, 2007, that is after 10 years and 7 months, the court of the third instance found Tai Ji Men not guilty of tax evasion or any other charge. The prosecutor's indictment was tossed and rendered invalid. In addition to the prosecutor, tax official of the National Taxation Bureau act as accomplices by issuing illegal tax bill. Moreover, the administrative enforcement agency illegally auctioned the land belonged to Tai Ji Men. These law enforcers who hold administrative power blatantly violated the law and have become a malignant tumor of Taiwan's democracy and the rule of law. This 24-year case of injustice has affected people across 3 generations. The use of Tai Ji Men disciples have been taken away. Justice and the rule of law have been taken away. What is even more important is the hope for a better nation have been taken away as well. We published a book titled Who Stole Their Youth, describe the ordeals of 24 years. What has happened cannot be unrecorded. The mistake in the history have to be remembered. We insist on doing the right thing. In addition, the Tai Ji Men case is not exception. There are many similar cases of persecution by the Tax Bureau. We hope more people will get to know the truth and fight for our rights as taxpayers. The English translation of the book will be available this year. We appreciate the help hands from international friends. Let's work together to solve this case and to save Taiwan. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ruby, for sharing your story and your truth. Tai Ji Men's shifu and shimu and brothers and sisters have endured over 2 decades of struggles, but through these struggles, the only mindset our shifu has taught us is to use our conscience to inspire positivity to those around us. And through conscience, we would be able to promote love and peace in the world to create a peaceful society. Our next group of panelists will be sharing on the positivities that they have acquired and their perspectives on the Tai Ji Men unjust tax case. First, I would like to invite Gil, who is currently a junior in college, and to share her experiences.
Thank you, Andrea, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. It is my pleasure to be here and share my thoughts on the Tai Ji Men tax case. My name is Gil, and I'm a current junior in college. And I believe the spirit behind Taiwan's Judicial Day consists of justice, fairness, and impartiality. And as a proud Tai Ji Men dizi, I'd like to use this opportunity to share the truth of Tai Ji Men, beginning with my experiences in the academy. I initially joined Tai Ji Men because both my parents were dizis. I was immediately introduced to a family of brothers and sisters from all walks of life and of all ages. As my family and I moved to California, I'm so fortunate to still be able to go to an academy here. English was not my native language, so when I had homework questions, my brothers and sisters were quick to help me. I enjoyed nights at the academy where brothers and sisters, while munching on snacks and drinking tea, converse for hours and talk about life in general. And all that is to say, Tai Ji Men has been my family for the entirety of the 20 years of my life. All of my experiences with Tai Ji Men and its members have all been positive and meaningful. I've had many opportunities to participate in cultural exchanges, performances, and forums, all with the objective to spread the message of love, peace, and conscience. I remember clearly in 2014, Dr. Hong, our shifu, initiated the Era of Conscience movement. Conscience is like the inner voice within everyone that acts as a compass, guiding each individual to help others, treat each other kindly, and cherish the environment. At that time, I was in the latter half of 8th grade, and I invited my friends to endorse the movement as well. But conscience was a relatively new concept to me, and through actively promoting it with shifu, I was eventually able to understand more closely what it means and be able to explain this important value to my friends. I realized that conscience is essentially the centerpiece of how we think and act. Since the movement, people from 197 countries have endorsed the movement, and the advocacy for a culture of conscience inspired global joint activities spanned throughout the past 2 decades. For example, the Declaration of Human Rights for World Citizens in 2002, and the International Day of Conscience, which was declared to be April 5th of every year. And this was adopted when the 73rd session of the UN General Assembly adopted the Promoting the Culture of Peace with Love and Conscience resolution. And throughout the past 2 decades, Shifu interacts with world leaders like they are his friends. And in response, many of them resonate with his message. For example, many world leaders wish to ultimately have love and peace in their respective countries, and they are encouraged in their roles to make a positive impact and act on their conscience. So I believe that conscience plays a role in both the small and large grand scheme of things. Dr. Hong said that conscience is the good of human nature. Through education and self-awakening, it can stop evil and promote good, and affect the country, society, and the world. So some examples that come to my mind are, for example, if I'm taking a walk and I have trash in my hands, but there's no trash can around, do I hold on to it until I find one, or just simply litter in a bush nearby? Or if I'm an owner of a cafe and I know customers can't tell if I mix a lot of cheap coffee beans with a few expensive ones, do I go with that option just to save money for myself? Or on the larger scale, if a government official can make bonuses by accusing citizens of tax evasion, should they do that and betray the truth? Unfortunately, this last scenario is what happened exactly to Tai Ji Men. But it was bizarre to me that we were even prosecuted and that the government still issued illegal tax bills. I knew Shifu and Shimu, how they loved each and every one of their dizis and passed on invaluable wisdom. I also knew brothers and sisters personally, how they constantly supported one another. So to instigate the case, Prosecutor Ho defamed Tai Ji Men and Shifu based on false information. And the media, to say the least, like many of the speakers have mentioned, followed this pattern of slander and brought false information to the public. I believe that to promote the culture of peace, love and conscience are the essential ingredients. The corrupt officials for years have denied truth and disregarded their conscience. Like Taiwan, the United States prides itself on freedom and democracy. Yet, as we see today, equality is still far from reach in the US. Due to factors like systematic racism or corrupt authorities, justice is stripped from certain groups of people. However, many citizens, supporters of justice, or even allies of the Black Lives Matter movement are speaking out. And protests are organized, awareness is spread on social media, and the movement towards equality is continually growing in size and effect. And the same desire for justice is also seen in Tai Ji Men dizis. However, it appears that we aren't even allowed to express our opinions because certain Taiwanese government agencies, like the Taxation Bureau, shuns protesters and their efforts to speak up. For example, Taiwanese police arrested a Fight for Fair Tax volunteer who was just standing on the street peacefully holding a sign. So where is our freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and our right to fair taxes? From the beginning, Tai Ji Men has been innocent and not guilty of tax evasion. The purpose of insisting on this truth, now for 25 years, is for justice, and in the broader sense, for human rights. Shifu and Tai Ji Men dizis act in accordance with conscience and to do what is right. Since I was young, I was able to witness and be part of such a positive community, working together to not only become better people ourselves, but to also spread love and peace to those around me and internationally. Shifu, along with brothers and sisters, have visited 101 countries, talking with world leaders and sharing the importance of conscience. The corrupt Taiwanese government officials need to awaken their conscience and correct their wrongs. Only then can Taiwan move towards a better future, where the government and its citizens live life cooperatively and fairly. And to truly honor and live up to what justice signifies, the legal tax bills must be rescinded. Then it will become an international precedent, showing that human rights can and should be preserved in light of conscience and justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Gil. And yes, the Tai Ji Men case is indeed about justice because over the 24 years, the amount of money that everyone has spent on the case could have way paid for the bill, probably many times as well. So we truly hope that Tai Ji Men will attain the justice it deserves, setting a good example for any future cases. So it is unfortunate to also see that Tai Ji Men dizis have experienced the major human rights violation through the case, but also recently we see it through the denial of freedom of speech at the protests, which I am very glad that Ruby talked about the book, Who Stole the Youth. And as the lady in the video mentioned that Ms. Chung, she said that a good book tends to be one where the reader benefits, but also the writer themselves. So I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to Ruby and the whole team for putting that together to hope that we can all learn from this case. And so I'm glad that we have found that way and encourage everyone to check out the book. And if you are waiting for the English version, we all look forward to that. So thank you. And next, we would like to welcome Cici, who is Tai Ji Men dizi and also an architect, to share her thoughts. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cici, and I'm from Los Angeles. I'm very honored to be here to participate in this forum. As you know, you can see California has been the major COVID-19 battleground since March last year. There is a confirmed COVID case every 6 seconds in Los Angeles. Many people's life has turned upside down physically and or mentally. When facing COVID-19, we realize that it is not enough to just keep one safe. Everyone has to be safe and healthy so that the world is safe. We're on the same boat, so we need to help each other. Start from ourselves, do good deeds, be grateful, gather good thoughts, be united, cooperate with one another, and generate positive energy to enhance the immunity of our global communities. On April 5th last year, when the world celebrated the first United Nations International Day of Conscience, Tai Ji Men presented a manual for disease prevention and health protection in response to the Global Conscience Day. The manual illustrates the 3 don'ts and 5 do's as the key concept for people to stay healthy. And this manual has been translated into 42 languages, spreading across the world via internet to thousands of people, including presidents, prime ministers, as well as 50 state governors in the United States. We also presented our achievement of the global endorsement of the United Nations International Day of Conscience declarations, in hoping that everyone will follow the guidance of their conscience to treat each other kindly and treat the environment kindly, to create a positive butterfly effect so that everyone has a chance to survive the pandemic and the world can resume its pace. Viruses in nature invade the human body and set off a storm of immunity. What about the human heart? Is there a virus? When a virus invading a government system, it also triggers a collapse of public authority. In Taiwan, this so-called democratic country still inherits an ill practice of bonus system from the martial law period. Non-profit governmental sectors have incentives for profits. Bonuses are like a virus to tax officials' minds. Making profit becomes their primary goal rather than tax according to laws. This phenomenon is the major reason why there are so many tax victims in Taiwan. Tai Ji Men and my shifu, Dr. Hong, is one of them, and we have been persecuted by our government for over 24 years. Tai Ji Men tax case is the byproduct of the Tai Ji Men criminal case, which originated from prosecutor Ho's fabricated accusation. In his indictment, Prosecutor Ho invented 320 million Taiwanese dollars as proceeds of fraud and demanded that the court confiscate them. At the same time, he said that the same money was tuition fee and business income from cram school and demanded that the National Tax Bureau to collect tax. The NTB therefore issued 6 years of tax bills without investigating in accordance with the law, only based on Prosecutor Ho's allegation that Tai Ji Men is a cram school. In 2007, after the Supreme Court ruled that Tai Ji Men was not guilty and did not owe any tax, the NTB was still reluctant to automatically revoke the tax bill. It is after numerous attempts in the administrative relief trials that the NTB finally corrected the bill amount to 0 in the 5 years out of the 6, leaving 1992 tax bill to remain. The NTB refused to correct the bill to 0 amount, even if they themselves are well clear that Tai Ji Men is not a cram school. Tai Ji Men has never been a cram school. The red envelope are gifts to our shifu, not tuition fees, and are tax exempt. The nature of Tai Ji Men never changed, and the tax based on tuition money is incorrect. But the NTB refused to revoke the bill in 1992 and persisted in handing over to the enforcement agency for illegal enforcement. Last year in August, the property belonged to Tai Ji Men in Miaoli were forced auctioned by the NTB. Even the procedure was full of illegal conducts, which reveals their intents on snatching our properties and split the profit as bonus money. Not to mention that there was time when the NTB used whiteout to alter official languages and forge documents in order to seize the assets that belonged to Dr. Hong and his wife. After being exposed by the court, the NTB actually returned the money in the name of tax refund to conceal the fact that they had obtained it illegally. And why do you think they did that? Ignoring the fact that Tai Ji Men is not a cram school and the red envelopes are gifts and are tax exempt, but still insisted to seize our lands. It is because they are chasing after the bonus money. They want the money so much that they rather not to follow the court decision to revoke the illegal tax bills. This is our profit-driven tax officials. This is why this bonus system must be abolished. And this is why Dr. Hong, my shifu, so urgently promotes conscience education, because only when people follow their conscience, they will choose to do the right thing, even if there will be no benefits for themselves, but it will not harm anyone. Greed is like a virus to human heart, eliminating the temptations such as incentive bonus will correct this crooked phenomenon that causes so many miseries and tragedies among tax victims. Thank you.
Thank you, Cece, for your sharing on your perspectives. And I like how you open with the idea of the pandemic and relating that to the disease of the heart as well. And for the well-being of people, Tai Ji Men has, like you said, created the Manual for Disease Prevention and Health Protection, which has been widely shared last year to leaders around the world in hopes to raise awareness and promote everyone's well-being. And we welcome our audience actually to also share the video, watch and share, and on YouTube you can type in 5 do's and 3 don'ts, preventive measures for health and well-being. And we hope that more people can watch the video and benefit from it. And so from SARS to COVID-19, viruses have continued to evolve in the past 17 years, and humans are committed to pursuit of medical and technological innovation and progress. So the Manual for Disease and Prevention and Health Protection encourages people to start from the heart and create an epidemic prevention network that balances both the body and mind. And so at the beginning of 2020, Dr. Hong called out to the world saying, with united hearts and conscience, we can overcome the pandemic, and to work together to fight the virus. We invite all of you to widely share the disease prevention tips and follow the 5 do's and 3 don'ts for protection. And we humbly beseech heaven to have mercy on us. May the outbreak end soon. And we say it again now at the beginning of 2021. We truly hope that all people around the world will be safe among this pandemic. Related back to Tai Ji Men, in fact, and Chen Zhenren, and the director of health and the 14th vice president of Taiwan, had once praised Tai Ji Men. He said, I think Tai Ji Men can cooperate with our Department of Health to organize this new health concepts and prevention campaign. It's really amazing. So, I mean, more ways the better, right? Stay safe out there, everyone. During this trying time, we can overcome it together. And now we'd like to welcome our last speaker for today's event, Annie Su, who's a Tai Ji Men dizi, and her occupation is a realtor. We look forward to your speech. Welcome, Annie.
Thanks, Judy. I'm honored to have the opportunity to speak in this panel. My name is Annie. In early 2020, Dr. Hong Daozi told Tai Ji Men dizi to start with themselves to do good deeds and use positive energy to lift the spirits of others. Once the unprecedented times are over, we can then embrace new opportunities. In particular, Tai Ji Men created a manual for disease prevention and health protection, 3 don'ts and 5 do's. Dr. Hong instructed for this to be translated in 42 languages to share the physical and mental prevention for this pandemic with people around the world. Since establishment in 1966, Tai Ji Men Qigong Academy has been practicing Qi to cultivate the mind, strengthen the body, promote Chinese culture, as well as physical and mental health. With over 100 countries traveled thus far, Shifu and Dizi are committed to spreading the culture of love, peace, and conscience around the world. We are now entering 25 years since the Tai Ji Men tax case occurred. Over the past 24 years, Tai Ji Men has gone through ups and downs. Time and time again, we have put tremendous amounts of effort, but we have not received any positive reinforcements from the government. As an overseas dizi, I have many thoughts about this. I joined Tai Ji Men in the Northern California branch in the summer of 2004 to practice Qigong. Although I did not personally experience the unjust tax case in 1996, I have seen my shifu, brothers and sisters, face authorities and difficulties for so many years. So many brothers and sisters are no longer in this world, but they weren't even able to see the day that the case be rejected and our innocence be proven. The younger brothers and sisters who were still children that year have grown up now, and they still continue to shoulder the responsibilities and continue to work hard to defend their homes and nations. How many people have the time and youth to wait for fairness and justice for 25 years? How many people have the patience and willpower to wait this long? From 2004, I have practiced Qigong at Tai Ji Men with my shifu. He is someone who teaches us both by example and by words of wisdom. Although the government has not yet returned him or Tai Ji Men to justice, in the past 20 years also, he has continued to love the world and its citizens. He continues to bring brothers and sisters to travel the world to spread the idea of love and peace. He has also brought brothers and sisters into the United Nations, working hard for the welfare of all mankind. Such a good group of people, and yet we still can't see the day that the Taiwan government returns us justice. This is really hard to understand. After joining Tai Ji Men, besides my body becoming healthier and my complexion becoming better, the most unexpected result has been that my nervous personality has been greatly relieved. So I started to recommend my family, friends, and relatives to practice Qigong at Tai Ji Men. But frustrations began to arise because of the Tai Ji Men tax case. Prosecutor Ho Kwan-ren's false accusations and rumors of raising a goblin have been spread to the United States. Many friends began to drift away from me and gradually stop interacting with me. They even misunderstood that Tai Ji Men is a cult group. A false accusation has harmed so many innocent people, even those who live overseas. Even though in 2007, the Supreme Court has already proven Tai Ji Men innocent, and Tai Ji Men, shifu, and brothers and sisters have received compensation from the government. The harm that prosecutor has caused continue to affect Tai Ji Men. Tai Ji Men is a community where we practice Qigong for mind and body improvement. On top of this, we have continued to spreading the message of love and peace around the world to bring change and strengthen the international image of Taiwan. Throughout the years of spreading love and peace, we have received commendations from 4 presidents of Taiwan. And therefore, as overseas American dizi, urge the Taiwanese authorities to use their conscience and reject this unjust case. It has been already 25 years. Please return to us fairness and justice so that our future generations can live in a world of freedom and equality. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie. It's encouraging to hear your improvements in practicing Qigong and Tai Chi Men. Nowadays, we could all use some help to relax and rebalance our body and mind. So I sincerely hope that this case will be resolved right away so Tai Chi Men, instead of spending time to fight for justice, can focus on spreading goodness around the world. And you mentioned the topic of raising goblins being brought up. Many of our speakers mentioned too. I don't know if the audience knows that prosecutor Ho Kwan-ren said himself to a media host, how he determined that Dr. Hong was raising goblins, or Tai Ji Men was from a streak of shadow in his eyes. And that was how he determined that Tai Ji Men was raising goblins. We live in a society in 2021, or when it happened, it was 1996, advanced enough for us to know that these should be based on science and evidence instead of a streak of shadow in his eyes. What does that mean? So it's absurd, and that this case has gone on for 24 years, and now we have to continue to talk about these things and about the flaws that are in this case, because we don't want anyone else to have to experience something like this. You might, you know, be sued one day because you have a streak of shadow in your eyes. It's ridiculous. So we thank all of you for participating in this event. You know, check out the book, Who Stole Their Youth. It's out. It's great. Thank you to all the speakers for putting your time into today's event. And we hope the audience was able to gain some insight into the issue, a common issue throughout history, in fact, where certain groups are persecuted by the government through taxation. And as Professor Jacobson said in the beginning, no person is above the law in a democracy. So we hope that we can reflect on this Judicial Day, and that there will be more justice and equality in Taiwan, in fact, throughout the world. So we'd like to also thank the scholars and experts around the world who have already looked into this matter and are astonished by how many flaws are within the 24-year-long of persecution. Thank them for their efforts, and hopefully, we hope justice prevails, Taiwan's government as a whole improves for the betterment of the society, and that Tai Ji Men case will end injustice once and for all. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you end it. Thank you.